There is a wise old Japanese saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Well, down in Tokyo, there's one nail that sticks out just about as far as you can imagine. An inventor known across the country, a mad genius with a staggering number of patents.
3572正確にはトーマス・アルバ・エジソンの3倍だ。
That includes a wig for self-defense. Meet Yoshiro Nakamatsu. You may notice his name is spelled Nakamatsu. He dropped the letter U because he says an 8-letter name is easier to remember, but he still wants you to pronounce it
Dr. Nakamatsu.
You got it, Doc. Dr. Nakamatsu's quirky inventions brought him worldwide recognition. Inventions like the Pian boots, with springs that put an extra bounce in your step. There's Dr. Nakamatsu's Cerebrex. It looks like a lazy boy, but the doc says the darn thing enhances brain power. Then there's the gold golf putter that pings when you strike the ball. Huh, would you look at that? You know you've made it when the streets are named after you. But make no mistake, Dr. Nakamatsu's inventions aren't all noisy golf clubs and bouncy shoes. He claims to have invented the floppy disk. That's right, that floppy disk. Retractable landing gear, a widely used kerosene pump, and even the digital watch. To maintain his hyper-creativity, Dr. Nakamatsu keeps his mind and body in shape. That lightweight inventor Thomas Edison said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Is that your secret, Dr. Nakamatsu?
いや、秘密はエキスピレーションだな。いろんな発明をするにはね、いろんな工夫をしてます。どうするかっていうと、例えば環境です。正の部屋、スタティックルームまたはカームルームと、それと壁が全部金です。なぜならばテレビの電波とか電話の電波がそういうのは一切入らない銅の部屋です。動く部屋です。このダイナミックルームで発明のまとめにはいつもベートーベン第5の第3楽章を使って発明をまとめています。それでもダメな場合があるんですね。奥の手があります。これは世界中で誰もやってません。水の中に潜るという方法です。水の中に潜りますと酸素が脳に回らなくなります。水の中でもかける紙を発明しまして、それを持って水中に潜って、そうして発想を出してそれをメモに取るということをやってます。死ぬ前の 0.05 秒までぐーっと水に潜ってないと最終的な発想が出ないので、死ぬか発明するかどっちを取るかという究極な発明の方法です。私は非常に難しいがんにかかりました。私は天に感謝しました。
Dr. Nakamatsu saw the cancer as an opportunity. It was his greatest challenge to invent his way out of an impossible corner. He developed his own personal cancer treatment. This includes a meticulously documented diet and a new invention to fight the cancer he calls the Gangan robot. The doctors gave him 1 year to live. That was 5 years ago.
I am 91歳ですが、決して老人とは思っておりません。私は若くて、そうして幸せです。私が143になった時は、そろそろ死ぬのかなっていう 心配になるかもしれませんけども、私は死ぬまで発明を続けるでしょう。なぜなら私は人々の幸せをもっともっと与えたいと思っているからです。それによって私は幸せです。
All right, here we go. Let's jump into the Jasmy coverage of the night. Shout out to the one and only Icy Amphibian for doing the patent breakdown. So I won't be able to get into all the particular patents, but I want to share what I have with you guys. Some interesting stuff. And basically speaking, he has this, and he posted this on the 9th. He says, Jasmy community, my Jasmy mobile patent breakdown is complete. It was so large that it had to be split into 3 posts, of course, on Reddit. Here's part 1 with parts 2 and 3 in this thread. See you on the moon. All right. I'm going to take you straight to the Reddit page. So I want to get into this specific part. There's a lot of parts there, and in reality, you know, hey, Icy, we love you, man. Thank you for all the great detail info. I'm going to get into some of the key parts that kind of really caught my attention, and if anything, it's all worth noting. You guys could totally nerd it out more if you want, and I'm going to send you a link on the chat for you can look into it if you're that type of guy. There it is. Okay, so you can nerd it out if you want. Maybe it gets kind of chopped off on some of it, you know, because of YouTube character limits. But the bottom line is, you know, this part, okay? This part is where I'm going to put some emphasis. So it states here that you have this part of the patent. It's called Claim 20. Now, you got to keep in mind, this is all verifiable. Let me get to the top part of this, actually. So, yeah. Let me give you the guys this link as well. Here's the source, because everybody wants the source. So I'm going to drop that into the chat as well. All right. There it is. And now we're going to jump back down to Claim 20. I'm just going to do Control F 20. All right. So why am I pointing out this compared to all the other stuff? Well, again, guys, we'll be here way too long, and you're not going to want to get into all this stuff. But this particular part, I think you should draw some emphasis on. And again, shout out to Icy Amphibian. Make sure you give him a follow over on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. In Claim 20 of this particular Jasmy patent breakdown, states it's a program installed in the terminal unit, a terminal device in which the program is installed, comprising the memory storage function, which memorizes the first individual specific information, an operation function for inputting second person identifying information that is associated with the first person. Sounds so crazy, right? In layman's terms, Icy has stated that this describes claims that are in a program that are installed on a mobile device. Now, we know that Jasmy is trying to do this whole thing of, for instance, you know, the blockchain smartphones, right? iPhone, Android, sounds really cool. You know, that's absolute game changer stuff. But Icy also points out that this includes a memory function to store critical personal data, operation function for sharing shareable personal data with other devices in the network. Remember how we're talking about the significance of interoperability? Everything has to talk to each other, but at the same time, not give away too much information. Even with Quant, Gilbert Verdian was making examples of, you know, we have IoT, you know, but we don't necessarily need certain devices to have the strictest amount of security, right? Like, you know, for instance, I have a smart washing machine. Does it really need to talk to every device in my house? Not necessarily, right? But look what it says here. You know, shareable personal data with other devices in the network. This sounds like, quote, software-defined storage. Downloading Jasmy software course onto your device for whenever you need that. You know, maybe there's times you do need it. Maybe there's times you don't need it. But where the case, when you need it. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, what is software-defined storage? I'd be asking that. Well, basically, what you need to understand is that software-defined storage sounds pretty interesting. And why does it sound so interesting? Well, basically speaking, you have to understand other storage platforms. What's a good example of a storage platform? Well, there's many. We could talk about, shout out to, Mr. Tim Shea, who's into Flux. But for me, I want to use the example of Filecoin. Okay. Now, you guys know I'm really into Filecoin, very bullish on Filecoin, I own a lot of Filecoin. And I thought, let's talk about this for a brief moment, because we know that when it comes to Jasmy, they have entered into this whole new realm of Web3 data storage solution. Right? We know that they're going with Polkadot, that layer 0, to get the job done. All sounds great. But you know what? There's not enough coverage about this. So let's talk more about this. So I'm going to give you guys some notes. And basically speaking, what I want to share with you is, I think I'll take a screenshot. Hopefully I can take a screenshot about this. So I'm going to shrink the screen down just a tad. And anything, I'll share this on X or something like that, because X going to give it to you. I thought I had the screenshot already available before, but I didn't, and that's okay. But still good stuff. We'll just go ahead and crop this real quick and save it. And we'll use it as SDS example. Hold on, just bear with me for a second. So, yes, let's go ahead and get this out. And anything, I'll share this to Twitter. Some people are going to be like, what the heck are you sharing? That's, I guess you could say it's just my own example, right? I won't even post it yet, so that'd be kind of cool. All right, there we go. So let's share this. Save. And yeah, let's go ahead and share this. So what we're going to do is, here it is from Twitter. All right. So look what it says here. It says feature. And basically, let's jump back for a second. It says storage mechanism. Filecoin is decentralized. SDS is centralized. Consensus mechanism. Filecoin is a proof of space-time, which is post. SDS, has none. What data integrity? The Filecoin is proved through post. SDS is managed through software. Now, again, I want you to remember that, managed through software. Well, what kind of software do we have in regards to Jasmy? Well, we have numerous examples, right? You saw some of the software that's used, for instance, in regards to a Jasmy secure PC, right? That's particular software that's used on Avita PCs and or laptops and Vio and so on. What's the flexibility about this? Well, with Filecoin, it's very high flexibility. SDS has, is very high as well. Well, scalability. Filecoin is high. SDS is also very high. But key thing here on flexibility and scalability, both Filecoin and also, this SDS kind of like right on par with each other. Programmability is limited with Filecoin, but programmability with the SDS is very high. So what about Jasmy in a SDS? Well, if anything, I'm going to get into a little bit more of that nitty gritty for you. So all my notes, if you're wondering about Filecoin with Jasmy, if Filecoin uses a software-defined storage, the answer would basically be, to a sense, no, maybe a little bit of yes. But Filecoin itself, keep in mind, while it's very impressive, and I was blown away with it and so on because of its performance, Filecoin is a decentralized storage network, where on the other hand, SDS is centralized. You have to keep in mind with Filecoin, it uses a novel consensus mechanism called proof of space-time, not space-time continuum, but space-time. It's called post. It requires storage providers to prove that they are storing data over, of course, just that time. This is done by submitting cryptographic proofs to the networks that show that the data has not been tampered with. That's a cool thing, and instills trust. This is why Filecoin is considered a quality storage solution. SDS, on the other hand, is in fact a storage architecture that separates the control plane or software layer from the physical storage hardware. Hence why you would have a mobile version with what Jasmy is trying to go through. Do you kind of follow what I'm saying? This separation enables greater flexibility, scalability, cool, right? And programmability in managing and provisioning storage resources. So that sounds interesting. Now, back to the whole thing about Filecoin. While Filecoin and SDS both share the goal of improving the efficiency and flexibility of course, data storage, they do so in, of course, different ways. Filecoin uses a decentralized consensus mechanism to ensure the integrity of stored data, while on the other hand, SDS uses a software-defined approach to manage and provision storage resources. Why do I keep citing SDS? Because you got to keep in mind SDS is what Jasmy is going to be using for this particular patent breakdown, obviously. That's game changer. Now, we showed you that table that summarized the key differences between Filecoin and SDS, but your key takeaway should be the difference between the two when it comes to Filecoin and even Jasmy, because this is a new particular patent that is going to be incorporated for instance, smartphones, blockchain phones, if you will, for both the iPhone and even the Android version. Now, jumping back to what I see Amphibian has, let me go ahead and do the share again. All right, here's another part I want to talk about. Talks about this invention that relates to information processing apparatus, data processing method, and a program. All right, here's a little background of this invention. It says, in recent years, it is common for companies to strictly manage, let me blow this up a little more, the handling of personal information. As a technique for protecting such personal information, for example, Japanese patent application, lay-open, that particular number, 2013, and like can be cited, and in Japanese patent application, this particular one, an image processing unit divides an image data into regions, each including personal information. And there has been proposed a personal information protection device, including a protection pattern request unit selecting and inputting a protection pattern, indicating whether or not to encrypt personal information, regional data related to each piece of divided image data. I'll read this last part too. I know this is really technical, but it says, and a personal information process unit for encrypting the personal information region data when the selection input is a protection pattern indicating encryption. Bottom line, what does that mean? Well, referencing encryption technique with Japanese patent applications for protecting personal information by dividing image data with each piece being linked to the shard, I should say, of personal data. Referencing a proposed personal data protection device, which includes protection pattern request unit and a personal information processing unit, which encrypts personal information when it's told to do so by the selected protection pattern. What does this all mean for you? Because it sounds complicated. Basically, it's like this. All right. So in the future, we'll be into Web3. What about the apps that are still around in regards to Web3, right? Well, one of the apps that are going to still be around would be like the X platform. Well, how do you tackle the whole thing of, data protection, right? Or privacy and so on, especially in Japan, because you have to tackle that and you have to do so in ways that simply make sense. Yeah, I don't have the data on me at the moment, but I mentioned numerous times, let me jump back to this for a second, that when it comes to Jasmy, they have obviously a unique model or platform for the future, designed for the future, that's going to separate itself to meet the demands of data privacy laws, especially in Japan. Now, Twitter, or I should say X, I'm still in a bad habit of calling it Twitter. X, for one, needs to incorporate some of these things that will exist on these platforms. And if you have a smart blockchain phone, if you want to call it that, well, those things that revolve around all the things that are incorporated with all this data coming through simply need to be, simply need to have the right type of format with these patents. And you're now starting to see this all come together as the bottom line. There's one more area I want to get into in regards to, like it says, solving the problem of all this. And then we'll jump into the next thing. So here's this other part. It says, for instance, this apparatus, means for solving the problem. It says, there's this whole thing of a terminal device comprising a storage unit that's configured to store first individual identification information, person identifying information that's associated with first person identifying information stored in a storage unit, and it has lower identifiability than the first person identifying the information. This means that it needs to match descriptions and earlier claims. Skip to 0024. So we're going to do that. According to an aspect of the present invention, it is possible to provide information processing apparatus from a concept completely different from that of the related art. Illustrations. That's not the one I wanted. I apologize. Here it is. Sorry about that. It says, yeah, here it is. I'm sorry. Data processing system. The program, also data processing method using the information provided in the present embodiment or like all these examples, the specific data processing method to the network and servers and devices. So again, back to the whole thing we shared earlier about, what is going to be stored, like for instance, on chain. We get an example of Filecoin, but what about from the Jasmy perspective? Well, there's a patent that covers all this. Don't you like the idea that there's actually patents being made to prepare all of us, especially the people of Japan, for the future? Bottom line is this. This is a patent breakdown that recognizes all these things that are involved with Web3 and so on. But specifically, since we're talking about Jasmy and a secure PC, secure blockchain PC, is there anything that talks specifically about that? And the answer is yes. Because you do have an apparatus that is capable of communicating with various terminals. The terminal device is typically here it is, smartphone, tablet, personal computer, or like the information processing apparatus is typically a server. So it's basically, all this is patented and designed for we can have not just interoperability, but everything talking to each other on the smartphone, kicking it back up to the cloud, right? You see how this is all basically mentioned. Talks about, for instance, the multiple, plurality of devices. Talks about, for instance, being like in different rooms. But look at this, different regions. How about different countries? I mean, all sorts of stuff. There's so many things that are broken down into it that you could really appreciate that it's even there, and that somebody from, obviously the Jasmy team put it together. Now, if you're wondering about who exactly that is, from what I gathered, I will show this part with you. It does talk about Kazumasa Sato. Let me pull this up. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got to interpret this from English and so on. Yeah, here we go. So it talks about patent application 2023. This is this year. I'm not gonna get into all this, right? Japan Patent Office. Look at this, guys. Look how early this is. Not that long ago, September 12th, 2023. Because some people say to me, Max, you always show me stuff from many years ago. Can you show me something new? Well, this is not me. This is Icy Amphibian. Shout out to him. But the cool thing is, we get more into this. Some people say, well, it doesn't mention Jasmy. I mean, this could be like, a particular patent done with budget. All right, I'd be with you. But look what it says. I mean, it says, for instance, boom, Jasmy. There's Jasmy right there. Well, where does it mention Kazumasa Sato? There's Sato right there. Inventor. How about this? Tagashi Hagawara. Boom, there. So, I mean, it's all there for you. And then we get more into this. I mean, I'm not going to get into all of it. I mean, it's all in Japanese, but I mean, they got this all lined out, man. It's real technical stuff. But the bottom line is they're up to something. And it's very cool what they're up to. And I'm glad that there's people like, obviously, Icy Amphibian, who's paying attention to this. So I know that's not a lot of coverage in regards to Jasmy, but it is worth paying attention to because it gives you an example that they are really trying to do something with this. And it's not a nothing burger. I mean, if this whole thing is a scam, right, then they're sure as the heck going through a lot of trouble to create things or patent things and so on. Can we all agree on that? I think we can.